Oh, beautiful. Well, hope everyone's had a lovely week. And I hope I trust that the teaching last week was informative. And I actually got an email from Emily, but she's not on yet, um, asking me to explain uh, some things which I really felt was a good thing to go into after what we talked about last week. And her question was, um, how do we know when we're striving? How do we, and she shared some personal things, and I thought, well, this is a really great question because, we can talk about submitting and surrendering, but there is there's a feel to it, there's an energy to it, there's a presence that's on it. And it's good to understand when you are, when you're in the flow with God, especially if it's something that you're still learning, you're still navigating in, and when you're in your own strength. So I want to touch on that today, in the sense to, when we're in our own strength and when we do things with God, how the difference actually shapes your results and even your character and the spiritual atmosphere around you. So, the core contrast is in our own strength. I'm going to break it down between the two, and then we'll pull it together. So, our own strength is when we're relying primarily on your personal willpower, right? And your intellect and your own tactics. It's like, yeah, I can do this. And we can. God has given us a mind we are able, we have free will. We can do things in our own strength, and we can sometimes have good results. But my experience is there is a difference in the results. It's the difference of the impact even on my physical body to when I'm doing it with God and when I'm doing it in my own strength. So when we're moving with God, we're relying on the Spirit's presence and guidance. The power, you know, it's like infused power. It's infused ability. It's something that takes us beyond our own capability. And we are, like, I'm a very capable young lady. I have natural, talents, so to speak. I have abilities. I'm a really good organizer. There's so many things that's in the natural, but it's not actually in the natural. They are the gifts that God has given me. They're the capabilities that He has given me. So when we surrender who we are, we're handing over all the talents and the capabilities that He actually gave us in the first place. So it's not like, and I have heard this taught, you've got to put those things aside. And I'll give you an example. If you are a naturally talented artist or a singer, or, you are naturally good at certain things, the church will go, well, that's not of God. And I have heard that taught. And it's like, no, because the very DNA of God is within us. And when we connect with Him spirit to spirit, He wants to use those giftings and those talents. You don't turn around and put them on the shelf and go, well, they're not of God, because they are most certainly of God. The difference is taking those natural abilities and talents and working with them with God, or working in them with God. Now, I am a natural organizer. There's lots of things that I can do that I said that are natural talents. I was born with them. I was born I have really good work ethic. So, these are things that are natural to me. They're not, oh, wow, I've got to work, I've got to be good at my job. That doesn't come into my way of thinking because it's naturally there. What the difference is, I will embrace God in my day, in my choices, and then we do it together, which then takes my natural talents and abilities to the next level. And the next level is it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like I'm striving. I'm not trying to achieve something. I know that I will achieve what I'm trying to do, what's in front of me. So, the signs of operating in your own strength is that we have this sense of, I see it as panic. Often it can be a panic. It can be this urgency. I've got to get this done. And we're rushing. And that to me is a sense of striving. And there's no peace. We're over controlling, we're micromanaging outcomes, we're defensive when plans change. Now, that's a really big one. This is where we've got to stay fluid in God's direction and hand, because we can think we're going a certain way and then he'll go, no, let's go over here, and it will be a better outcome. So staying, and that all comes under being submitted, under surrendering, that we are, trusting God to move us where we need to move. And, I think I've talked about this before. It's like if you're in a job that you absolutely hate, like every time you wake up, every cell in your body's screaming, no, then please reassess what it is that you're doing and why you are in that job. Now, God is quite capable of finding you something else. That doesn't always mean that we throw in the towel and go, God will get me a job. Okay? It's about wisdom and addressing wisdom into the situation. But this is where we go into the asking, the questions. God, why am I in this job? Now, sometimes he'll say you're in it for a reason, for a season and a reason. And then it's like, okay, well, how long is the season? Don't be afraid to ask him. And he will give you a timeline. Okay. So, and this is all, like I said, we're working with God 24/7. He's with you in everything that you do, everything that you say. He wants to be involved. If you're running a small business and, the financial, bottom line is not weighing up to meeting your needs, then you need to ask the questions. What's going on here? So God will tell you. He will tell you if there is a spirit of poverty or if there's a spiritual attack. He'll tell you if you're not being a good steward with your finances. He will tell you if your staff are ripping you off or stealing from you. God, I really want to stress the importance of, again, asking questions, because God will answer you. And sometimes it will come through a co-worker, or it'll come from someone that you love, or a friend will start talking to you about, situations, conversations. Don't disregard good conversation. I've heard God many a times in a conversation, and I have been used by God to say things for a person in conversation. I used to, years and years ago, we had to do a presentation. I did go to Bible school, and they was like, okay, you've got to come with a presentation. And I walked in with a mug, and I I made the reference to, you know, my mug, and my mug was represented my 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 cappuccino ministry. I always love to have a coffee with people because that's when you have the best conversations. This is when God can, you know, create a conversation. He creates connection through, you know, my cappuccino ministry. And that's how I started out. That's how I started to learn, um, uh, you know, how to hear God's voice and speak into people's life without them even knowing that I was speaking from the heart of God towards them. But it would hit them. It would hit them in a way that it would go, oh, yeah, you see that light bulb moment. You see God touch their hearts and bring transformation and breakthrough. And this is where, you know, please don't underestimate God's incredible capability and his want to be connected in every aspect of your day. And this takes the striving out of what we do. There's a flow that comes with it, and it brings a lot of joy. It brings harmony. It brings fulfillment to your life. Because when you're striving, there isn't fulfillment. And it's, to me, it's like when I strive to achieve something, it never works out the way that I think it should. Like there's very little effort for my striving because it's in my own strength. And it takes a toll. When you strive in your own strength, it really takes a toll. It takes a physical toll. It takes an emotional toll because you're doing it in from a 3D realm rather than from the higher dimensions that we're called to move from. So when we're operating in the spirit, we have peace with purpose. And we're decisive. We can make good decisions. We are unhurried. We're able to pause midstream. Now, this is a real key. If you are in the middle of a situation and, you know, things are become chaotic, or it's like, whoa, hang on a minute, what's happening here? This is really a very fundamental tool, is that you take a step back and just breathe and ask God what's going on. Ask God what's, you know, problems arise all the time, but God has always got a solution. So if we ask him for the solution, we can get it. Now, for some of you that are aware, you know, we've just had my daughter's wedding, and there was a lot going on with this wedding that was emotionally really hard. And we were, you know, my daughter went through, both my daughter and her partner went through quite a lot emotionally. And some of it was God doing some incredible deep work in both of them. But there was also outside stuff. And then, of course, there's so many moving parts to a wedding or anything that you organize where you're dealing with lots of people. There's different facets. And, you know, problems were arising. Oh, this hasn't happened, or this person's pulled out and they said that they would do this. And, you know, you stay in peace, because if you try to solve the problems in your own strength, to me, it's like running around in circles. That's what it feels like. So it's a case of stop and breathe and then go, okay, God, we need a solution. Well, we were getting solutions left, right, and center. They would just, because my daughter moves in a very similar way, and we just like, okay, this is the problem. Okay, God, how do we, what do we need to do here? And we had, you know, problems were solved, and people that pulled out, other people then stepped in that were better. They were better people for the job that we were needing. They did a fantastic job, and they did it cheaper. And, you know, they did exactly what we wanted in the sense of how we wanted it to look. And so this is where the trusting of God, if someone pulls out that, oh my God, the world's falling apart. No, stop. Just be at peace and go, okay, God's got something better. And for everything that we went through the months leading up, the day was perfect. There is not one part of, well, not 1 minute of that day that we would change. It was perfect. And everybody said so. People were, you know, they were in tears because of the love and the presence that was over the wedding. The food was amazing. You know, everything was just beautiful. And this is when you hold things up, when you give things to God to be a part of, he goes way beyond your abilities. He exceeds your imagination. He exceeds your expectation, because you're letting him flow and move. I find a lot of people get disappointed in Christendom because they put their expectations on what they think God should be doing and how he should do it. Can I say, when you do that, you are striving in your own strength. You are moving in the natural. You are not moving in the spirit. Because what happens is God doesn't move the way you expect him to, and then people get angry with God. When you let go and let God, you will see that he has a better plan. He has a better outcome for you. That is awesome. It's beautiful. It exceeds your expectation. And it's not coming from you striving. It comes from peace. It comes from trusting, which again comes back to submitting and surrendering. It's more surrendering, because that is a spiritual switch when we choose to trust God and let him do what he wants to do. Often in our own strength, we have short-term wins. And we also can have long-term physical, spiritual, and emotional wear and tear, breakdowns. And often it can feel like all our prayers keep hitting a ceiling. Has anyone experienced that? It's like my prayers are hitting a ceiling. I don't feel like, you know, I'm getting through and God's not responding. So there again, remember, questions are good. God likes questions. He doesn't want you to blindly follow him. He wants to partnership with you in everything that you do. Now, you know, I think I shared last week that I'm one of these that likes to step out in faith. Do you know? It's like I like walking on the water. So there are things that I can do that are natural, and then there's things that God will ask me to do that will take me beyond my natural ability. Now, do I do it with, you know, fear and trepidation, so to speak? Sometimes I do, but I always know that God will meet me in it. Now, you know, when I've spoken in front of hundreds and thousands of people, people's expectations, you're picking up what's in the atmosphere. And if you come under that, you will step into your own ego and agenda to perform. But when you step back and breathe and let God carry you through that, again, that's a surrender. That's letting go of what I can do in my strength and letting his strength be yours. and be led by the Spirit, the outcome is amazing. It is one of the things that I feel that brings me to tears the most, but it brings me to joy as well, because I see God's hand move in spite of what I think or feel about myself, in spite of how I feel that I'm not going to do a good enough job, which are all lies, because when you're walking with God, you bring the best. You bring excellence. And excellence is in the heart of God. It's in this moving with the Spirit of God. So don't over promise to the things that you can do, right? Like lots of people will ask you for things, and it's okay to say no, or no, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that. Don't fall into the pressure to perform, to be a yes person. That is not God's heart. And again, it's something I have seen throughout Christendom, is that, people are over promising their commitments because that's what's expected from leadership. This is why people fall. This is why people in church, they come under so much pressure to perform, and then they lose their way, and then they become false prophets, or they start using Google to navigate words of knowledge and all that sort of stuff. And that is starting to be exposed in the churches today, particularly the evangelical churches. And it's because of the pressure to perform. We need to stay in check with God. There are seasons where God has me out and up front, and then there's seasons he tells me to stay back. He goes, no, it's time for you to rest. Now, because I'm a goer, in the sense of, yeah, let's keep going, I've had to learn to listen to God in doing that, because I know that he has my best interest at heart. And I also only want to do what he's asking me to do, because when you step out on your own, there are consequences. When I step out in my own flesh, there are consequences. It's not because God's left me. It's because I've stepped out of what his heart is for me. So the other things, like when you're striving in your own strength, it can come from pride. When it works, we get all, oh, wow, look what I did. I always listen to the way people speak, particularly in partnership or a business. Yeah, I did this, and it's my business. And I'm like, yeah, but you've got 20 people that are helping you. Like, it's not it's we. We're a team. We're a team here. God and I are a team. I'm a team player. I love teamwork. I love doing things with other people, because it brings accountability, it brings joy, it brings fun, it brings communication and conversation. And we get to cheer each other on. That is what God is all about. He's about, championing us on in him. It's a win-win situation when we walk with God. When we are led by the Spirit and we're moving with him, this is what carries true authority. I see a lot of people trying to do things, and I've seen it so often, and I think that person has no authority. They cannot command a room because they're doing it in their own strength. And that's when you'll find that they start yelling at people doesn't go down well. They're yelling at people, you're not listening to me. You all need to be quiet. And you've got a room of a couple of hundred people. And I just go, wow, you poor thing. Because they are not coming from a place of authority in God. And yet they're trying to bring spiritual messages. When you're in the spirit, you also have God's full protection. When we step out of God to do our own thing, and particularly if you're a person that gets into spiritual warfare, which is not, I don't recommend it, unless you're coming from a place of victory because we've already won, you're opening yourself up to being taken out. And if you have a family, you open up your family to being taken out. And again, it's something I see time and time again in, different pastors and ministers where their children are a mess because they haven't known how to protect their family. So when we live from authority, we resist darkness and we invite his kingdom dynamics into the space that we're serving. So your home is where you have authority. It's a space that you have governance over. You, as a mum or a dad, male or female, you have authority in the space that you live. You govern it. Now, when you go out into the world, God expands the space that you govern as you grow in him. And so when you can start, expanding your authority in the spirit realm, then you start to grow in taking on, powers and principalities. You start to have authority to speak into the natural realm with what God is telling you. Like, we talk about prayer, but I talk about, I don't call it prayer. I call it proclaiming and decreeing the heart of God into a situation. To me, a prayer is often a begging perspective. It's not always, but often it comes from it. I find when I hear people pray, it's often a begging perspective. When you are aligned with God and you know your authority, you know who you are, you know who he is in the situation, you are decreeing and proclaiming his purpose, his will, his heart into the situation, into your own life. If you are a gifted artist and God is calling you to present your artwork, then start decreeing and declaring the doors open for it. Right? It's different if it's a hobby to being a calling. I have many hobbies because I like to play with different things. I love to paint. I love to sing. I love to dance. I love to play sports. Right? But they're the things that I enjoy, but they're not my calling. They're just giftings that I get to enjoy. So even those things, you can take God into them. I take God to sports with me all the time. I play better when he's with me because I step out of striving. Not that I've got anything to prove sports-wise. I do it for health and fitness and for a good laugh. There's nothing like a good laugh. And I meet some really lovely people and it's diverse. I meet some not so nice people and that's okay. But, you start to connect with those that you connect with. And there's a purpose and a reason for that. Please don't get hung up on, well, that person doesn't like me, so I need to go out of my way to like them. Okay? You flow with the Spirit. The relationships that you carry today, that's another thing that I've prayed. God, give me the relationships you want me to have. Remove the ones that are not of you. And there's more in that happening globally, where people are shifting away from other people because there's a great divide happening in the heart connection area. We want to be with people that, it's like gathering your tribe, so to speak, or finding your community. Okay, it doesn't mean that we ditch those people. We just tend to find more time with those that we have more in common with, that God is working through. Okay, and again, sometimes this is for seasons, sometimes this is for long term, some people are for life. It's just how the ebb and flow of the Spirit. So some things that you can ask yourself. You can go, God, am I striving, or am I flowing with you? Right? And there's a fine line between them, I find. And the more you learn to flow with God, the quicker you are to notice when you start striving. Okay, so there are certain things I do. I will attempt something 3 times, and if I feel resistance, I'll pull back. And I go, okay, is that not the way that I'm meant to go? And God will tell you. Sometimes he'll go, not yet. No, I've got something else for you. And I trust that. And I trust it because God has proven to me his faithfulness and his character of always being with me. Have I stepped into things where God has asked me not to go? Yes. But then I can feel that he's not as strongly with me. I still feel his presence. I still feel his power, but it doesn't feel the same. So then I'll step back. Sometimes we go, God, I haven't felt God's presence for a long time. Then go back to where you did feel his presence. Go back and ask him, have I missed something, God? Am I going in the direction you want me to go? There are times when God will tell you what's up ahead, and you'll want to get there before his timing. Now, come on, we all do this. We all go, yeah, God's told me I'm going to be this. And, I've got dreams, and he's spoken to me and he's shown me, and I know that this is what I'm going to do. And then it's like, well, let's make it happen. And I know God's timing is always perfect, because in the duration, this is really important, guys, in the duration from where I am now to where God's taking me, there is preparation. There are learnings, because God will not put you out into a situation where you will fail. That's not how he works. He's not going to put you in a situation to test you. God is all about preparing you. Now, Psalm 91, I went through a 12-month season where I felt like I was in the desert. And I was like, God, I don't know what's happening here. And he took me to Psalm 91, and he started to unpack verse by verse And that was why I was in a desert season. There was preparation. There were things that he taught me in the spirit that if I didn't stay where he had me, I would not have learnt. So there are scriptures that will jump out at you. There will be wisdoms that will come to you where God is preparing your heart. And this comes to, again, not my will, but your will, God. That is surrender. That is in his spirit. When we ask him, and we can get caught up. Honest, it's easy to do. We can get caught up with what's happening in the moment. Yeah, let's do this. This is going to be so much fun. And that's okay. But if you feel that you're hitting a wall, or, you feel that you're getting exhausted, then you are not doing it in God's strength. You are doing it in yours. As you grow in the spirit, your body will start to physically manifest in a way that it's telling you you're not in line with God. Okay, you're striving in your own strength. This is why when I'm moving with God, I get vitalized. I get energized. I feel younger. I feel, I have countless energy. I leave a lot of young people behind because I get so energized with God that I could run a marathon in the spirit. And this is where you're doing it with God. Life is easy. This is the scripture that scripture says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Now, this is another thing. If you feel the weight of life on you, or you feel bowed down with burdens, then you need to break that yoke. You need to shake that off and reset. And a reset is simple. It's simply saying, God, I'm sorry I stepped out in my own strength. I'm trying to do this on my own, but I don't want to do it on my own. I want to do it with you. Help guide me into that. So this is all my conversations with you is all about that relationship with God. It's to be so tight-knit. My prayer for a long time was, God, let your whisper be enough. And God will honor the prayers that you pray, particularly when you're hungry for a relationship with him, for the truth of the Spirit. The truth will always arise because there is nothing that can hold it down. We are in a global movement of truth coming to the surface. It's like, God, the things that are hidden, let them be revealed. Now, I say this, if you stay looking at what the world is presenting at the moment, it will feel heavy. Because that's exactly what chaos and confusion and misinformation does. If you stay connected with God, you'll see the truth behind what's being done, and you will see what God is doing. I think in this season more than any other, it is very important that we stay in line with the Spirit of God and we don't get into striving. Because when you're in striving, it comes from fear. Fear and ego. A lot of the messages out there are based on fear, and a lot of people that are bringing them is based on ego. The more we surrender, the more we stay in the Spirit. Don't strive in your own strength. This is where you see the hand of God move on your behalf. This is where you see miracles. And yes, I sit back and I get so amazed. I sit in awe and wonder of who God is and the things that he does for me, the things that he does for other people. I just sit there going, wow, God, thank you for that. That gives me the greatest joy. And it makes my life full of living. And my living is full of life. So I'm going to finish that there. Is there any questions?
Hi, Dottie. I've got a question.
Hello, Leanna. Go for
Dottie,
it, darling.
I think the biggest challenge that I am facing is the ability to ask God what's happening in this moment, particularly when there is a challenge with another person. And what I'm sort of finding is that when the emotions come up, I'm challenged by those emotions to the point that I'm forgetting who I really am in the spirit, and that I can actually ask God what's happening here right now, and waiting for that information to come to me. So, Jodie, I don't know, beyond just sort of having it tattooed to my forehead to remind me that that has been a huge challenge.
Okay, Leanna. All right, my love. So emotions rise up. We all have them. Okay. So the thing is, and often it's interesting, I find, particularly when things come through a text message and you're like, what the heck? How dare they say that? And you kind of, I want to rebuttal this. Now, never send anything out of anger. Can I just say that? Because you will regret it. The key is, Leanna, is you're learning to not let emotions dictate to you. You're learning to give your spirit governance over your mind, will, emotions, and body. That is right alignment, okay? That your spirit rules and reigns over your body. So in those times that those emotions rise up, I want you to take a step back and breathe and just go, okay, don't succumb to the emotions, because your emotions are not always telling you the truth. And the reason I say that is because our emotions have been hurt or damaged or programmed in a way that they don't come out of the function of the spirit. That's why realignment of the spirit having governance over your body, over your mind, will, and emotions is really important. So when emotions rise up, don't succumb to them. Don't give in to them. No matter how strong they are, take authority over them by stepping back and breathing. And then inwardly, you can go, I take captive everything that I'm feeling and thinking right now, and I just bring it under the authority of God, and I give myself permission to think clearly. Okay?
Okay.
You will find that your whole body will change energy, they'll change frequency, and then you'll be able to hear God clearer in the situation. No one can disempower you unless you let them. If someone comes at you with anger or frustration or accusation, if you go head to head with them, you have now entered into your own striving. I want you to sit back, look at what's going on. Often the person is coming out of their hurts and their anger or frustration, or their disappointment or their grief. There's a whole turmoil of things that go on with each and every one of us. And so you never take it personally. Okay. Does that take time to get to that? Yes. It takes stepping into God.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that people say. I've had people say horrible things about me, and I go, but that's not true. But that's, again, I surrender it to God and go, God, you know the truth. And the truth always comes out. Okay, so if it's you, because you run a business, you've got employees and things like that, or you're working with co-workers, it's just always the key here, guys, is step back. Just step back and go, hang on a minute, what am I engaging with here? This is a great one, so that if you're, am I dealing with outside energies? Am I dealing with entities here? Do I need to bind them? Or am I dealing with someone that's hurt and doesn't feel like they're being heard and they're disappointed? So that you can see things from all perspectives. Always look at everyone's perspective. Every situation, any sort of conflict, I look at everyone's perspective. I put myself in their shoes to understand what they're thinking and feeling, what's happening for them spiritually. Then I'll step back out of it. Then I'll look at the other person's. And that's how you get God's wisdom and solution to a situation. Because often, and this is, offended people especially love to find other people that are offended. It's the same as those that have suffered from rejection. They're looking for those that have rejection. The familiar spirits, they gather together and they tend to implode on one another after a short space of time. Happens all the time. See it all the time. It's because they haven't dealt with their issues. But that doesn't mean we condemn them. God's heart is for them to be set free. God's heart is for them to be healed and made whole. So, God, what part do I play in this? What do you want me to do? And I have found the biggest way, and it's the same with God. We use the word repentance, but I find the biggest way is to just say, I'm sorry. When you say, I'm sorry, or I apologize, you've just cleaned the slate. And what happens when you say that, even if you're not in the wrong, it then pulls down all the walls, pulls down all the negative energy, and it brings it back to being able to have a conversation. If we can have conversations that brings healing and understanding, then we're winning. Now, I've tried to have conversations with people where we've calmed them down, and then we go, okay, so what's happening for you right now? They just explode again. You cannot reason with someone that comes from anger, frustration, and they're emotionally exploding. It's not possible, because they are irrational. So what you do is you step back and you go, look, I can see you're really upset, and we're not able. Let's just. How about you just have some time out, or how about we come back? Give yourself some time. Go outside, do whatever it is you need to do, just to get them to reset, so that you can have a conversation. You know, conflict resolution is on God's heart. It's always on his heart. Restoration, healing. Now, there are some people that you cannot reach because that's their choice. That's their free will. And that's okay. You do your part, you do you, and you leave the rest to God. If you are, actually, it's a really good point here, and I'll just finish on this. If you are in a relationship or have relationships where you're constantly trying to make them feel better at the expense of yourself and not getting any fruit, you need to question what you're doing. Sometimes you need to just let people go, and then at the right timing, God will bring them back. Because they are stuck on they're right, you're wrong, and they don't want to hear anything different. So again, step into the Spirit. Stay close to God. Even sometimes I'll get people to physically take a step so that they know their whole body, their whole being realizes what they're doing. I'm just taking a step back here so that I can process this better. Okay? So there are practical things that you can do to just go, hang on a minute. All right, I'm not going to get caught up with this. You know, if you're an empath or really sensitive to the spirit realm, you will pick up on lots of people's stuff. It's really important that you learn how to step out of that, because there are things that you are not meant to carry or even interfere with. Otherwise, you'll carry the weight of the world on your shoulder and you will become sick. Life will be drained out of you. So to keep your heart light and free, you always surrender. You always hand it over to God. Stay in the Spirit. Remember, it says, not by might, not by power, but by my Spirit. That's a promise. And when I was first, when I was in my early 20s and learning the different tools of the Spirit, that would be something I'd pray every day. I'd get up and go, God, not by my might, not by my power, but by your Spirit. I hand you my day. It's good practice anyway to give God your day. God, you direct me. You guide me. You lead me. You bring people into my life that you want me to connect with. I hope that helped, Leanna. Thinking of you too, sweetheart. Been holding you up in prayer.
Thank you, Dottie.
My pleasure. I hope that helped, darling. Otherwise, just send me an email. I think that's it. Everyone all good? Hope you got something out of that today.
Dottie, I got one quick question on something you said, if you got a minute.
Yep, go for it.
It's something you said just a few minutes ago about some things aren't meant for us to get involved with, even though maybe I see a need. Seems like there's a need for a change or some words to be spoken,
Yep.
just a few words on, maybe having the discernment to know where you can intercede.
Well, that's exactly it, Bradley. Sometimes you can see a situation and God says, no, don't say anything, but you can hold it up in prayer. You can decree and declare change for that person. Okay. And often you end up being the answer for them down the track. because there's God's timing. There are times when, you just say it. If you've got that relationship where you can say it, then you say it. Just go, I just feel God wants you to know this, or God's with you in this situation. Very, very few people reject, the truth of God. A lot of people think, if I talk about God, then they're not going to like me and all that sort of thing. That's not the case. People are very open to God. They're not open to religion. They're not open to, the formulas and the formats and man's agenda, but they're open to God. They're open to the Spirit of God. And these are the wordings. It's your words that infiltrate. So if you see someone that has a need, and if it's a practical physical need and you feel to meet that need, then do it, right? Buy someone a cup of coffee, whatever, spend time with someone. But if it's more internal, you can see that they are, being harassed in the spirit, or they've got hurts. And to be honest, there's not a day that doesn't go by that I don't see people's hurts and feel for them. But it's about God's timing. And if you have a relationship with them, then you can speak into them. If you don't, then look for the words of encouragement that counteract what's going on for them. And I'll give you a quick example. I often see young mums with their children, and I can see that they're struggling. I can see it in the spirit. They're really struggling being a mum. And often what underlines that is that they don't think they're a good mum. So I will just go up to them and, look at your beautiful kids. Aren't they gorgeous? And then I'll just say to them, you know what? You're a really good mum. I don't have to go, thus saith the Lord, and, God wants to let you know. It just comes from your heart.